to the Albert Ellis Institute. How many of you are new here, if anybody? Okay, so welcome, and we have those that have been here before. So tonight we're going to talk about how rational emotive behavior therapy applies to managing how we eat and drink, especially during the holiday season, because that tends to be more of a problem than other times during the year. So one of the things I did was I asked, everybody has in their handouts triggers. And the triggers could be triggers of emotional eating, triggers of emotional drinking, triggers of overdoing something. So I'm just going to ask you to take a couple of minutes or seconds, if you have the answers right like that, to just fill that out. And I broke it down between emotional and practical triggers. So for example, an emotional trigger to eating might be boredom, depression, loneliness, anger. A practical trigger to emotional eating or drinking could be a lot of holiday parties, family that pushes food on you or drinks on you. So it's important just kind of get a sense of like, what are your triggers, so that we can then spend some time working on how we're going to deal with those. So if you guys can all just take a minute or so just to fill that out. So what are some of the emotional triggers for you guys?
Well, if I'm emotional, I don't eat.
And when you say emotional, but what kind of emotions?
If I'm upset or I'm sad or something is going on that's bothering me, I won't eat at all.
Okay. So you kind of go the other, go the other direction of not eating. Okay. Others? Yep.
Say happiness.
Okay.
A lot of,
Yeah.
We're planning a wedding, so wedding style stuff and a lot of fun activities to do.
Right. Which is interesting because a lot of people don't consider the positive moods that trigger emotional eating. They think of more of the negative moods, so that's a good point.
We put on 10 pounds each during our first year of dating.
Okay.
Just going from
All right.
meal to meal to meal.
Love pounds. Okay. All right. Others? Yep. In the back.
When I'm overwhelmed with like a lot of things, like schoolwork and things like that.
Okay. And when you're overwhelmed with those things, how are you feeling? Are you
Frustrated.
Okay.
And tired. And
Yeah. Okay. Good. Not good, but good. Others? Anyone else with emotional triggers? Okay. How about practical triggers?
So when it's practical, then if I'm like at a party, a gathering with family, and there's food, then I will eat.
Okay. Okay. So if it's in front of you and it's like a party or something, that's when you'll eat.
Right, I'll eat a lot more
Okay.
than the normal.
Okay. Others? Yeah.
I'm sort of the opposite. I tend to lose my appetite because I'm so excited about the things.
Okay, so you're more kind of into the people and what's happening rather than the food, and someone else might be less into that or having issues with that and more into the food to deal with that. Okay. Anyone else? Yep.
Buffet style eating. Anything.
So if it's there.
If it's there and there's unlimited amounts of it, and
Okay.
you kind of keep walking past.
Got it. Okay. Okay. That's why cruises are so successful. Yes.
I have a question. Where would you put habit? Like sometimes I just eat too much out of habit.
Because it's just what you do. Okay. I'd say. And are you doing it for a reason, or is it just at this
No,
point
sometimes
you
it's
just?
mindless eating.
Okay. So that would probably be more practical. Like it's a practical habit that we have to break. It may have started as an emotional, reason, but now at this point it's more just habitual and practical. And okay, so that's a good question. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to really focus on the thinking that sort of drives the behaviors of emotional eating and drinking, and the thinking that creates the emotions that often accompany the problematic drinking and behaving. Okay? Does that make sense, everybody? How many of you in the room agree with the idea that how we feel about something or how we respond to something is largely the result of how we're thinking about it, thinking about what's happened? So in other words, like having all this food in a buffet, let's just say, the fact that the buffet is out there, is that what's making you eat? Or is it something that you're thinking about all that food out there that's making you eat? Thinking? So no one's blaming the eggnog. No one's blaming the pies. No one's, I mean, God, I love to blame family, but no one's blaming family. So are we all in the room taking responsibility for how we respond, no matter what's in front of us? Because that actually is essential to what we're going to talk about tonight. So I welcome people that don't have that perspective, because you know it's important that we all get on the same page. So does anybody? I mean, doesn't it feel good to blame other people and other things? Like, oh my God, isn't that great? Like, we can walk around feeling great. It's not me, it's the eggnog. It was there, so I had to drink it. Right? That's how we kind of often live our lives. But the bottom line is that we are not going to control, but during the holidays and 350 days out of the year besides that, where, like, what happens, right? Largely, a lot of things that happen, the way family members are towards us, whether we are near buffets, whether we have to go to parties, whatever it is, that is largely out of our control. So really what's in our control is what we want to do about it, how we want to look at it. So the good news is always that we can do something about it. The bad news is that we have to take responsibility. So we can no longer blame those other things. Yes?
Well, just, obviously as a student of REBT, you get in your head that, yes, it's my thinking, but then there are so many other triggers and so many other situations that, you know what, I said, I didn't take responsibility in this situation.
Right.
Yes, I can sit here and raise my hand and talk about how I know my thinking is there, but at the same time, like, well, if she didn't eat it or if someone else didn't put it in front of me, then I wouldn't have had that problem. And so I get caught up in the nuances of what I'm educated on and what I'm actually doing.
And that's a good point. So there's an intellectual mindset of, you know what you're thinking, but then there's also the reality of your life. And bottom line is that there are going to always be triggers, and there are always going to be things that contribute to the problem. But ultimately, everybody in this room, present company included, we have a choice. And that's the piece. Like, so if it wasn't there, well, you know what? No, you chose to eat it. You chose to drink it. We're going to talk a lot about not beating yourself up for it. But the starting point, though, is we have to assume behavioral and emotional responsibility for everything, no matter what's in front of us. And what's in front of us can be really negative, and that could be, idiosyncratic to everyone in the room. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's what we do with that. That's our responsibility. Yes?
I have a question about how to get the people who don't acknowledge it, or blame it on the food, how to get them to
blame it on the food in terms of if it wasn't there, I wouldn't eat it. Right, and that goes back to taking responsibility, because I can get 5 people in the room all, in front of certain food that they like, and not all of them are going to eat it. So the food's not making them eat it. Right? So they're making a choice that they're thinking, oh my God, that's so good, I want it, I have to have it. Or, pardon my language, screw it, I'll start tomorrow, I want it tonight, right? So there's a lot of I want it right now, I need it right now. So that's the piece, that I've never seen a French fry jump out into my mouth. If it's the food, right? If the food is doing it, then wouldn't that be the case? It's the choices we make. So you gotta, really be on board with taking responsibility no matter what's in front of you. Some things are gonna be harder than others, for sure. They're gonna contribute, but ultimately you've got the choice. So how do you guys feel about that? It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? It's like, oh, really? I have to take responsibility for this? But at the same time, it's a good thing because you can control that. Yes?
I get that you can control your own actions and
Uh-huh.
stuff. But, for instance, I have a family where they like to cook. And when they cook, they give you massive amounts of food.
Uh-huh.
They act as if when you deny the food or you're
Yeah.
like, I only want this or that, they act like it's really affecting them. They're like, you're
Personal.
really hurting my feelings.
Yeah.
I don't want you here no more because you disrespected my food.
Right.
And it's like, then it's their fault, I think, because I don't want it.
Right.
Leave me alone.
Right.
It's your fault now because you're pushing me. You're
Right.
So I try to avoid them.
Which is, it's not necessarily a bad, solution. And that will work as long as you can avoid them, right? Right? I mean, as long as you can avoid those people, that's great, it works. But that may not be realistic in your, everyday life. Like, you can't always avoid food pushers or people that want you to ride the guilt train or anything like that. So that's really kind of where, like, we have to, what I really appreciate about this type of approach is that, even in the worst case scenario, this type of approach will help you to be able to cope with it. So we bring you to the worst case scenario. So what you're talking about there about kind of avoiding certain family members or friends because they're food pushers, that's a great practical solution. And that practical solution will work as long as it actually is a solution for the situation. But there may be a situation I'm just making this up. For example, like you have to go to some sort of function for work. Like you can't get out of it. And there's all this food around and there are food pushers. So your practical solution
You can't avoid it.
it's not going to work, right? So what happens with this kind of approach is we're going to bring you to that worst case scenario. Let's assume you can't get out of it, and it's in front of you. What are you going to think and do differently so that you don't give into it? So that's the part about this type of approach that I think is so helpful, is that it really empowers everybody in situations where there's very little control. Does that make sense? What's that?
On our behalf or their behalf?
No, controlling you. I mean, that's basically all we have control of, is how we react to the things in front of us. I mean, there are sometimes we can control what happens in front of us, but oftentimes there aren't. There are adversities. There are events that happen that that's part of life, right? There are negative events that happen that we can't get out of. That's what happens. So we can't control that, but we certainly can control how we respond to that. And that's going to make a difference in terms of how we feel and how we behave. Okay? We on board? Okay. So, where did that eggnog come from? And you could substitute. We do this lecture every year around this time because it is a trigger for a lot of people. So I went through, let's see, I started off with, I think, candy cane, then I think I kicked to gingerbread. So I figured, let's do something different. We'll talk about eggnog, but it's all the same stuff, okay? Where did that blank come from? All right, so that's the question, like, how did this happen? How did I eat all this? How did I drink all this? What just happened? So the bottom line is the most important thing that you want to think about is what we call the BC connection, okay? In this type of approach, we have an A, which is an activating event. And an activating event could be something that happens to us. It could be a thought we have. It could be a feeling. It could be basically anything, outside or inside, past, present, or future. Activating event could be anything, all right? So a lot of people focus on the A. The eggnog that was there caused me to drink it. The family members that were pushing the food on me forced me to eat. Okay, so it's the activating event that creates how we respond. What we want to start to think about is there's something in between that event and our reaction. And that's where all of us come into play. And that's the way we're looking at things and what we're thinking about them. That's the B, the beliefs we have about what's happening. So it's what we're telling ourselves about what's happening that's creating how we feel. And then what we do. So if I'm at a buffet, I'll use your example, if I'm at a buffet, there's all this food there, okay? And it's all there, and I'm thinking, wow, oh my God, that looks so good, I have to have it, I really want it, I have to have it, I shouldn't be deprived, it's too hard to say no. What am I gonna do? I'll eat it, right? So the buffet didn't cause me to eat, it's what I was thinking about it, because I could also see the buffet, and I could say, that all looks really good, and I'd love to have it, and I really wish I could eat as much as I want, but it's not in my best long-term interest to do so. And while it's uncomfortable to sit there and look at all this food, it's not gonna kill me and I can tolerate it. So there's two different perspectives about the same event, the buffet, and you get two different reactions, okay? And that's what we talk about the BC connection. So, you know, a lot of society endorses an AC connection. So events, people, commercials, emotions, that's what causes you to eat, right? So it's not us, it's everything outside of us. That's an AC connection. What we are talking about is it's the way we're looking at what's happening that's creating how we feel. And that's what we call emotional and behavioral responsibility. Any questions? Because we can't move to another slide unless everyone is on board with this one. Everyone get it? That it's not the food, it's not the drinks, it's not the family, it's not the emotions, it's what we're thinking about all those things that's creating what we do and how we feel. We good? Very, very agreeable audience. I love it. Thank you. But honestly, if something doesn't make sense to you or you don't buy into it, speak up. Okay, what is the key to achieving basically all your goals, whether they're, you know, managing your eating and drinking during the holidays, whether it be, you know, whatever your goals are, practical goals, emotional goals. From an REBT perspective, irrational motor behavior therapy perspective, we would say unconditional self-acceptance, which is a concept that I will talk a lot about because that's really at the core of everything. It's a concept that I want to just give you a heads up about, that it's hard. It's hard to grasp. It kind of flies in the face of all the messages that we've been given from society, our families, which is self-esteem. I did well, I'm good. I failed, I'm a failure. That's self-esteem. So you're up and down, up and down, up and down, based on the externals. I have a lot of money, I'm a success. I have no money, I'm a failure. I don't like the way I look, I'm a failure. I am thin by society standards, I'm a success. So it's all how you rate yourself is based on externals. That's what we call self-esteem. Anyone see a problem with that?
Yes.
Which is?
I mean, what you find is that you constantly are jumping from one block to the next.
Right.
So, for example, if you're skinny but you're poor, then you failed in that way. But if you're rich and
Right.
you're overweight, then you failed in that way.
Right.
So you're never spending. You're always looking at the things you don't have.
That's right. And you could always go down, even when you're up, when you're high, because something good has happened or something, you know, you could always lose it. So it's a dangerous thing.
intrinsic.
That's right, exactly.
Feeling of self-worth.
Right. But as a society, that's what they endorse. You know, think about magazine covers, think about models, think about, you know, messages that are sent all, you know, where family messages, societal messages, whatever it is. It's that, you know, you have to look a certain way, you have to be, whatever it is, in order to be successful. That's self-esteem. And what we would say is there is so much danger in that, buying into that concept. Because here's my question. When are you good enough? Right? If it's a self-esteem issue, you know, when are you good enough? Because you could always lose it. So there's the risk there. So what we would argue is that a healthier alternative to that would be a concept called unconditional self-acceptance. And what that really means is that, number one, we don't rate our worth as a person, our value as a person, based on behaviors that we engage in, what we look like, what we've accomplished, our performance. Our worth, our value as individuals, as people, is not dependent on external behaviors and performance. So everybody in this room, everybody out there has the same self-worth, the same amount of worth, value as people. It's a hard concept to grasp, and there's a lot of controversy with this, that we all have the same value because we're humans and we exist, and that nobody in this room is better or worse than anyone else. Okay, so that's kind of the core piece. Now, an especially important point of this is that the recognition that we're humans, right? So we are fallible. We have flaws. It's kind of part of the definition of being human. So we are going to have positive things about ourselves, whether they be traits or behaviors or whatever, and we're going to have negatives. Negative behaviors that we engage in, negative traits that we have. But neither any positive or negative can define us as one global rating of success or failure, success or worthless. We are too complex. We're made up of too many positives and negatives to give ourselves one global definition, one global rating. And where I see people kind of fighting the concept of self-acceptance is, well, if I accept myself as I am today, whether that means like I'm doing something I don't like I'm overeating, I'm over drinking, I'm overspending, I'm avoiding family, whatever it is. If I accept myself, I'm saying that those negatives, those things are okay. That's not what self-acceptance is, okay? It's not saying that the negatives are okay. It's saying that I acknowledge that there are negatives and I am responsible for those negatives. But those negatives do not define me as a total person. So you keep hearing it goes back to that responsibility. We're not saying it's okay if you're engaging in a bad behavior or whatever the case may be. That's not good, right? Not for your goals. But to give yourself this global rating because of it puts you so much further back from achieving your goals. And so that's sort of the concept of unconditional self-acceptance. I accept myself unconditionally. I'm human. There's a lot of positives about me. There are negatives about me. But as a total being, I am not rateable. I can rate and should, in quotes, rate my performance, my behaviors, my actions, because you're responsible for them and that's a way to correct them. But those bad behaviors, bad actions are not going to globally define me as a bad person or a failure. That's really the piece. And if you get yourself to buy into that, really believe that in your gut, then you're going to be in a better emotional position to correct or change or modify the negatives that you can. And there are some negatives that are just part of you. You can't change them. They're just literally part of you that are unchangeable. But you're in a place where you don't like them, but you accept them. Thoughts? Comments?
I think it's really hard to do.
It's hard.
I wonder about some practical ways to get it in your head and to really believe it, because I think you can just rationally accept it. It's not enough.
Right. It takes a lot of practice and rehearsal to change a certain way of thinking, right? I mean, anything, right? If it's, I think you asked about habit, right? Where would habit fall? It's kind of the same thing. Like if you want to break a habit, what do you have to do? You have to practice a different way. So you're right. It is hard. As a concept, does it make sense? As a concept, does anybody have anything that they find doesn't really fly for them? Yes, in the back.
What if you're genuinely a very bad person?
Okay. There's always that question in the crowd. Good. Okay. So generally a very bad, well, see, now from a strict RIPT perspective, we would say that there's no such thing as a bad person because that's a global rating. I have to say that. That's my disclaimer. But what do you mean by that? A genuinely bad person?
Someone who likes doing bad things. I'm not quite sure I
Okay.
the opposite side.
No, it's a good right. So the response to that would be that even if somebody enjoys doing bad things, I mean, chances are they also do good things. And even if they enjoy doing bad things, it's still a bad person is a global rating. And it's basically what it's saying is that a bad behavior eliminates all the positives, or a positive eliminates all the negatives. We're too complex. We're neither good nor bad. We do really bad things, and hopefully there are consequences for them. But as a general perspective, that's you're talking about outliers here, not I get where you're going, but we would still say from a theoretical perspective that there's no such thing as a good or bad global rating. But I appreciate you bringing it up.
'cause I was thinking like, on one side of the spectrum, there's criminals.
Yeah.
And on the other side, there's, more, I don't know, very pious people.
Yeah.
You know, just
Mother
obviously
Teresa.
They could be good and bad, so.
Yeah, I mean, there are criminals, so, I mean, I don't know about you, but I know a few criminals, right? So, you know, they've done crime. By the way, anyone drive here?
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone ever go over the speed limit? Right, okay, so we've all broken a law, okay? So just, you know, like, so my point here is that even a criminal probably, I mean, I can't speak for all of them, I don't know all of them, but probably has done some good things. So if you can give yourself a global negative rating, then you can give yourself a global it makes, we're so complex. So, but the idea though, to kind of speak to what you're saying is, we're not excusing a criminal or a we're not excusing the behavior of the person. They're still responsible for it. But we're not saying that because you did a bad thing, you're a bad person. Everybody in the room done something bad in their life? Are you bad people for it? No. Anyone do something good? Hopefully, yeah. Are you good people for it? We probably tend more towards that, right? Yeah, great, right. But there's the danger, right? Because if you can label, you know, if you can give yourself a global positive rating, then guess what? It could flip to the other side, which is why it's dangerous. And that's what we call self-esteem. Are we good with this? Okay, so in the room, how many of you think that you're at a place where you unconditionally accept yourself? One. Okay. You know, I'm surprised by even one in the room. 1.5, maybe?
No,
2?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
in a position where I'm fine with myself.
You're fine with me. Are you fine with everything that you do?
Yeah, well,
Like behaviors and performance?
I didn't say that.
No. We're gonna get to that. No, I know. But are you fine with the negative behaviors or performance?
I would say I'm more of a positive person today
Okay.
from what I was,
Okay.
because I was different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Took a couple of bumps on the road
Sure.
to get to where I'm at.
Right.
But today I feel I'm fine, especially with my eating habits. I totally changed my eating habits. I don't go out of line.
When you did at one point.
I wasn't in the right place.
But were you a bad person or a failure or worthless because of those things?
I was pretty down.
Did you
because
think
I was
though?
overweight.
And what did you think about yourself?
I said I had to do something about this.
That's what you said you had to do, but what did you think about you for being overweight or having bad habits?
I felt terrible about myself.
Okay, so I would say back then you didn't have unconditional self-acceptance.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so you've gotten to that place.
Right, I've gotten to the place
Okay.
where I feel good now.
You accept yourself?
I accept myself, right, but I had to do a lot of things to get there, you know.
What if you went back?
I don't think I would.
But if you did, just go with it. Would you accept yourself?
No, I think I would be right back there.
Okay, so here's an example of you think you have unconditional self-acceptance right now because you're in a good place.
Right.
So you actually have self-esteem.
Right.
So we have to get you to even if you went back to where you were, your value as a person is not less than where you are now. You're the same person. Maybe your eating habits have changed. Your behaviors have gotten, quote, worse. But you as a person have not changed. So that's really a self-esteem. Right now you're in a good place of high self-esteem because you're at a place externally that's good for you. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. And that's the tricky part about self-esteem versus self-acceptance. You unconditionally accept yourself?
Yeah, at this point, I do.
Okay.
You know, because, you know, things have happened in terms of my career lately that I took some steps back with mistakes that I made. And I think ordinarily I would have beaten myself up to the point, because I missed a state exam, and it ended up costing me my promotion.
Okay.
And ordinarily I feel like I would have beaten myself up to no end.
And thinking, what about yourself for that happening?
Oh, well, failure. failure.
I'm a failure.
I would have thought I was a failure.
Okay,
And
so because I
let
missed an
myself
exam
down.
or missed the promotion, behavior, performance, that defines me as a failure. So that's the classic example of self-esteem.
Yeah.
Great.
But I reached a point where I was very upset at myself. I didn't realize I was okay.
Right.
You know, that's all I had to say to
So
myself.
upset at the behavior,
Yeah.
but not make the behavior define you. That's self-acceptance.
Yeah,
So, and that's, like I said, I just want to be clear, it's not easy. Yes?
You said again, I'm sorry. You said, upset at the behavior.
Upset at the behavior, but the behavior doesn't define you. So it was bad that I missed the exam, and as a result, lost my promotion. That was really, really, really bad. But I am not a bad person for doing that. So in other words, the behavior does not define the person. So we're separating them out. Rate the behavior, don't rate yourself as a result of it.
It's had a pretty nasty domino effect.
It's hard, it's not,
Financially,
yeah, of course,
emotionally.
of course. Absolutely.
I walk around, my tag says supervisor, I'm not a supervisor. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I walk around with that
Right,
reality.
but you're not a failure, right? Yes.
But how does it work when there are things that you don't like about yourself, but you don't think you're a bad person?
Okay, so how do you, let's say there are things that you don't like about yourself.
Yeah, there are things I don't like about myself and things that I wish I could change, but it doesn't mean that I think I'm a bad person.
Great, good question. So what's stopping you from changing the things that you can change?
I just don't feel like it, but I just,
Okay,
I mean,
good.
like, it's
That's
just-
fair. You're fair.
yeah,
You're being
it's just
honest.
frustrating. I don't want.
That's right. So there's
So-
frustration and tolerance.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
I know.
So the good news is that you're not, I mean, we're gonna get to the irrational beliefs that, right, exactly, thank you
That
for
doesn't
bringing.
mean that I have self-acceptance, right? I mean, it doesn't mean I have unconditional
No,
self-acceptance.
it means that you have frustration and tolerance, that, you know, this is just too hard for me to change. I don't feel like it. It's,
But I mean, like, as far as unconditional self-acceptance goes, like, I don't think I'm a bad person, but I don't like things about myself. So
That's good.
Does that give me unconditional self-acceptance, or does that just say that I don't have it?
no, that's a good thing. That's where you're not you're not saying that you're a failure because you don't like things about you. That's good. You're in a good place. Now, the goal is to work on the frustration and tolerance to get you to a place, right? To fix the things that you don't like, that are fixable. So there's an example of unconditional self-acceptance with a strong hand of frustration and tolerance. Okay? Okay.
So, I'm sorry, so what?
Yes.
So what'd you say I have?
So you so you have so you're actually kind of buying into the self-esteem trap, right? Right now you're in a really good place.
Mhm.
You're doing well, and that's why I asked you. Well, what if you went back to the place where you were and you said no? So you're still really rating yourself based on where you're at.
Mhm.
So unconditional self-acceptance would be, I feel really good about where I'm at right now.
Mhm.
And I'm really happy that I was able to do this, but that doesn't make me a success. And if I were to go back to the way I were, that would be really disappointing, it would be regretful, it would be, frustrating, but that also doesn't make me a failure,
Oh,
okay? So it's regardless of where you're at with whatever your goals are, it doesn't define you in entirety,
Yeah.
okay? Okay, so first step with controlling or managing whatever it is, emotional eating, drinking, or whatever the case may be, is accepting yourself as you are today, right now, no matter where you're at in whatever process of goals, achieving your goals you're at. That no matter where you're at, you are not a bad person, a failure, or worthless because you haven't accomplished what you're setting out to. So not beating yourself up for not being where you want to be. Accepting yourself where you are today. And again, I just want to, just refresh, like the resistance behind that is if I accept myself where I am today, I'm saying it's okay. I'm saying that it's okay that I haven't achieved my goals. No, that's not what it's saying at all. We're saying you're okay, even if you haven't achieved your goals. That's the key word. It's not okay that you haven't achieved your goals. But the fact that you haven't achieved your goals does not mean that you are a failure or not okay. So that's kind of the starting point. And if you can start there, you're more likely to achieve your goals. Again, talking about we're all fallible, we're gonna screw up. right? There's gonna be times where we just say, oh, I just wanna eat it, I just wanna drink it, oh, I'll deal with it tomorrow. That's part of being human. Okay, so the irrational beliefs, and what we mean by irrational beliefs for those that are new here, we're talking about beliefs that we have about ourselves, other people, and the world that get in the way of us achieving our goals. And from this perspective, there's 4, and for those that are taking notes, this is really important for individual purposes. Okay, there's 4 types of irrational beliefs. And at any point we can hold 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them. So, and everybody has them at different times. Okay, the first one is demandingness. So that's where we demand things about ourselves, other people in the world. I must stick to my diet. I absolutely must not eat this or drink that. Or I must be approved of by family members and colleagues, etc. So there's demands that we place. Okay, so that's the first belief. The second belief, and these are in no particular order, catastrophizing or awfulizing. If I overeat during the holidays, if I overeat at the buffet, if I give in to a pushy family member, whatever the case would be, that would be horrible, that would be awful, that would be terrible. And what we mean by that is, whether everyone in the room realizes it now, in the moment, that like it would be the worst thing in the world. That's catastrophizing. It could get no worse. Now, when you're kind of out of that moment, you could see, obviously, most things could be worse, but in that moment, you're believing that. Okay, so that's catastrophizing. Next one, low frustration tolerance, or we've changed it to frustration intolerance. They mean the same thing. This is a belief, and this is a lot behind emotional eating and drinking. I can't stand it. Oh, it's too hard to say no to the food or to, whatever, the good food. It's too hard, it's too uncomfortable. Or, screw it, I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, so that's a lot of what we call that frustration intolerance. So it's this lie that we tell ourselves that we can't tolerate the discomfort of an emotion we're feeling, and as a result we eat or drink. We can't tolerate the practical things like food in front of us, a lot of food in front of us, or good foods, so then we eat. So it's an idea that, like, I can't stand it, it's too uncomfortable. That's going to lead to a lot of what we're talking about. Okay? And then the final one, global evaluations of worth. So that's where spent a lot of time last slide. I'm a failure, I'm worthless, I'm no good, I'm inadequate. So you're giving yourself, so if I eat emotionally or drink, whatever it is, then that means I'm worthless. That means I'm a failure. Or I'm inadequate, I'm no good. So,
I'm sorry, excuse me, what was the fourth one you said?
Global evaluations of human worth. So that would be the I'm a failure, I'm worthless, I'm inadequate, I'm an incompetent. Okay, so those are the 4 beliefs that block us from achieving our goals. Now, when we think any of those types of beliefs, they tend to lead to emotions like anger, depression, anxiety, guilt, and those are the beliefs and the emotions that block us from achieving our goals. So, you're all here for different reasons, but let's just, in terms of like the topic, thinking about irrational beliefs, which ones do you kind of think might be a little familiar to yourself? Again, the healthiest bunch of people I've ever met. Everyone's rational in the room. Yes?
I would say all of them.
All of them, okay, good, you're honest, good. Okay, now are they all there all the time, or do they kind of sprout up at different times?
Different times, sometimes all of them.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, others?
I can't stand it.
Frustration and tolerance, okay. In the back, yeah?
The frustration.
Frustration and tolerance. How many, okay, let's just do it this way. everyone's gonna be thrown under the bus at the same time. All right, how many of you feel like kind of demandingness sort of drives your unhealthy behaviors and emotions? Okay, so we got 2 demanding, 3-ish, okay. Frustration and tolerance. Yes, shocker. Okay, all right, so that's like the majority of the room. Awfulizing or catastrophizing, okay, all right. And global evaluations of human worth, okay. Yeah, so it's a kind of, demandingness seems to be sort of the lesser of the 3, but it's not a surprise. So frustration, intolerance, human worth, and some catastrophizing. Okay, so that's important that you start to recognize that those are the beliefs, again, responsibility, that's what you're gonna be thinking in situations that are triggers for you that are gonna create the unhealthy behaviors and emotions. Okay, so just for everyone's individual, yes.
Just in terms of like the frustration tolerance applies literally the relationship between me and the food a lot of times. But then there's the other aspects of the catastrophizing when it comes to the relationships, because when you talk about unconditional self-acceptance, I conceptualize a lot of the things that you're talking about with UOA, with the unconditional other acceptance, because it's, the discomfort with somebody else who cooked the food, or that kind of relationship, and that kind of, I don't want to hurt anyone else's feelings, or that kind of relationship from that. So it kind of ties in to some of this, because I'm at somebody else's house, they cook this, try some of this.
Right, and those are going to be the adversities that we face, but you said something very interesting, like I don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
Okay. How many of you guys have had that thought?
I have plenty of times. I can give you a perfect example. Sometimes this also goes with cultures, with family cultures. Like for instance, I went on vacation to my family's house in Puerto Rico. They eat like food is going out of style. Like ridiculously an amount of food. To the point that you feel that the food is up to here in your throat. Like disgusting. I mean, the food is awesome, don't get me wrong, but enough is enough.
Right.
We're not accustomed to eating like that.
Right.
So I would tell my aunt, hey, you really don't have to make breakfast for us. We're fine with a cup of coffee and a cracker. We're fine.
Yeah.
She would totally get very offended.
Okay.
Like really upset.
Sure.
And you could just see it in her face that she's like, if you're coming here, you have to eat.
Right.
But she's like this with the food, and they don't want to understand.
Okay.
You just don't want to eat like that. So how do you deal with that?
Okay, so that's a great example, and I think that everyone has that kind of situation in some part of their life, right? At some point, right? So number 1, again, it's the best thing and the worst thing is that emotional and behavioral responsibility. Nobody in this room is powerful enough to make anybody else feel a certain way. Okay? So, if she's offended, that's because she's thinking, as you said, you have to eat this. You're here, you must. So she's got her own irrational beliefs about what should happen. So what I want to sort of drive home is everybody in the room, stop taking responsibility for other people's emotions. It's not your job. It's none of your business. I'm not trying to create a bunch of sociopaths here. I don't want to create people that don't care about other people's feelings or anything like that. That's the extreme, and that's not the goal here. But the point is that you could be a trigger. You could contribute to somebody's reaction, being hurt or offended, but you didn't cause it.
Yeah.
And
it was to the point that my husband was like, I love your family and everything, but we're not staying here.
That's right, we're going. Exactly.
We're staying at the hotel.
That's right.
Because you don't know how to tell them that.
Right. Well, we're going to talk about assertiveness, right? But no, and this is a huge problem is that you do. But if you can really remember and believe, I can't. If this person is hurt or angry that I don't want this much food, that's disappointing, and I'm sad for them. But I didn't cause them to, because you can get another family where have, and then no thank you. Oh, okay, I get it. You're done. It's the same amount of food, same situation, two different reactions. So you're not, why take that on? Don't we have enough of our own stuff? Why are we taking on our, like, why? How crazy is that?
With the food.
Seriously, like, right, we're walking around with our, like, 2 pounds of baggage that we, like, trying to just get across the street of our own nonsense. Why are you taking on your Puerto Rican family?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Wonderful, I mean, really good food, but enough. It was to the point that we were like, we can't even see it. And you know, over there it's different. Like, say over here we'll have like, okay, a bacon, egg, and cheese on the roll. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Over there is different.
Right.
Over there they want to do like rice and beans in the morning, and then rice and beans again in the midday, and then rice and beans again at night. And then this is like this is like a city, like
Road trip.
you getting all this
Right.
food,
Well,
like,
there's a cultural piece there, but then there's also, you know, there's the irrational piece there, which is you have to subscribe to our culture, right? So,
Yeah.
so again, how many of you want to take on everyone else's craziness when you got your own?
Yeah.
So doesn't it come across like a point where it's like you can say that it's not my problem if they think that way, but then where's the line where then you're just plain rude?
Okay. Well, we're going to talk about how you deliver that message, and that's after that. You're just like, I'm not going to eat your food. I'm done. Are you kidding me? What the hell? You're okay. Stop it. How are you still hungry? Yeah, that's rude. I get it. That's rude. Right. So there's a way of delivering the message, for sure. Absolutely. Like, what the hell is wrong with all you people? Are you out of your minds? We just had rice and beans. I'm done. Yeah, not so helpful. I get it. I absolutely get it. Right. So that's going to become a practical skill. But before we get to that practical skills, we've got to make sure that we're not feeling guilty about saying no, right? Because if we're feeling guilty, we're probably going to say yes, and then we're going to be, you know, angry at them, angry at ourselves, and it just screw rice and beans and all, right? So there is your question's a good one. Like, how do you, right? So it's about the delivery of it. So anybody really in the mood to take on everyone else's craziness? Anybody in the room in the mood to kind of let it go? Okay, so it's about kind of extremes. Like, it's not about you not caring if someone, you know, if someone is offended or upset or hurt, that doesn't feel good for us. Like, you know, I feel bad at this part, but it's, sorry to sound rude, it's not my problem. Where's the priority? Is the priority pleasing everybody else, or is the priority achieving my goals? And that's a question you have to ask. And by the way, there's no judgment in this room. If the priority is you know, getting other people's approval, that's your prerogative. It comes with a lot of consequences, but you have the right to that. But so that's really a question that everyone's got to start thinking about is, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Yes?
So can we consider all types of eating and drinking emotional? If we're going to consider cultural situations part of the equation?
So for example, so if I get up in the morning and I have Lucky Charms, are you asking, like, is that an emotional eating?
Yeah, just any type of eating.
Well, why are we eating?
Because we're hungry.
Okay, so that would be a practical reason, like that's actually the survival reason. But if I wake up in the morning and I'm feeling really anxious about the day, and then I go for the Lucky Charms, and I eat the Lucky Charms because I can't stand this feeling of anxiety, that's emotional eating.
Well, maybe it's just varying degrees of emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's 100%. The question is, like, are you using food or drinking or any others to escape a feeling, a situation, an event that you think is not tolerable or is horrible? That's the issue. Like, what is the purpose of the behavior? Good? Okay. So, any other questions about irrational beliefs? Good? Okay. Okay. So I love, thank God for the internet, because you get the best images. Can anybody relate to that? Okay, but that's
In
good.
about 45 minutes.
You know, I always joke, because I do a lot of lectures on eating and, you know, all variations of that, and there's actually never a good time to talk about any of this stuff. Like, if you talk about it, like, before dinner, then, you know, you're thinking about eating. If you talk about it after dinner, you're regretting what you ate. It primes you. So, but the good news is that when I asked that, a lot of people laughed. which I think is a good sign because there's some levity, there's some acceptance, like we've all been there, right? And you know, it's just part of being human. And it's not gonna help us to beat ourselves up for being there because it's not gonna help us correct the behavior. Okay, so as I kind of assessed everybody, frustration and tolerance is a big one. And that's the idea that I can't stand it. It's too uncomfortable. Now, actually what I would like to do, since we've gone over all of these, the different irrational beliefs, and before I do give you guys an exercise, I just want to talk about the what the hell effect. Okay? So the what the hell effect is, someone has an idea about kind of whatever it is, their eating style, eating behaviors, drinking, kind of diet, whatever you want to call it, and they break a rule. They go off their diet, they eat a cookie, they drink a glass of wine, they drink a glass of egg, whatever it is. There's a cycle that goes into place where many people say, what the hell? I started, I might as well keep going, right? Why not? It's ruined, so let's just keep eating, or let's just keep drinking. That's the what the hell effect. I'll start tomorrow. That,
Commonly known as the fuck it.
commonly known as the
Come on, Albert Ellis Institute.
I know,
please.
we're trying to clean it up a little bit, but yes, So it is. It's like the kind of like the what the hell, screw it. Like I've already screwed up. I might as well keep going. Can you guys relate to that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's very common, and we'll talk about how we deal with that. But what I want you guys to each of you think about a scenario where you engaged in either emotional eating or emotional drinking, and I want you to kind of go back to that moment and try and think back to what was going through your mind when that event happened, and then we're going to look at how you were feeling and what you did, okay? Can anybody, like, everybody think of something? Okay, can somebody give me an example? Don't all volunteer at once.
I can, I don't know, not one.
Anyone? Because you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And come on, we're all friends now. Let's go. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Stress from work.
All right. So, but what's the specific example?
A deadline, and just a lot of stuff happening all at once.
Okay.
It piles up, and maybe once you're done with it, stress kind of goes away, but you also want to kind of celebrate.
Yeah. And so what? I love what you're saying. It's like stress at work. Maybe you want to, and you want to. Well, what did you do?
Yeah.
So you celebrated.
Yeah, so maybe does that count as emotional drinking?
Well, what happened? I have no idea. What happened? How did you celebrate?
Just drank.
Drank.
And
Was it a problem for you? And not is it a problem, but was that been a problem?
well, the fact that my job is so stressful, you know, just maybe I need to stop celebrating so much.
His job is so stressful, he's gonna drink every day. Okay, but now what were you thinking about the kind of the stress of the day that led you to drink?
I don't get paid enough for this.
Okay, so I don't get paid enough for this. And now, what else might you have been thinking? Because that doesn't necessarily lead to drinking.
An escape,
Okay, escape from what?
stress.
Okay, so there you go. Right? Frustration and tolerance. This is so stressful, it's too uncomfortable, I don't want to feel this right now, I want an escape, I'm going to go drink. By the way, again, I just never want to appear like I'm up here judging because I could be in the audience as well, okay? So, but does that sound like that's a kind of a reasonable conceptualization of what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the idea, like, you know, I don't want to feel this, whatever the this may be, so you drink. Okay.
With friends, not alone.
No, that's, that's good. You need to do the disclaimer, it's fine, it's good. Others? You had one?
That's the problem with like the total opposite from this.
Okay,
I don't eat at all. Like if I'm frustrated or I had a horrible day at work or I'm really stressed out or I'm worried about school, I won't touch anything.
because
I just,
is
I
it
don't-
nerves?
yeah,
just
it's
not
a
hungry?
nerve thing. I'm not hungry.
Is that a problem for you?
That
It's a problem
can
for
be a
all of us.
problem.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you know, because I've seen this. I've seen this like in my sister-in-law. She'll get like that. You know,
Okay.
she's eating everything. I'm the opposite.
So how is that a problem for you?
Because then I become, obviously I'm more tired, you know.
Okay, so you have it, so for you, it may be more like it's a physiological thing where you're not hungry, and you may need to do more practical things, like even though I'm not hungry, it's in my best longer term interest
Yeah.
to have
Like I can
smaller
go
meals.
hours and hours and hours and won't eat. I can have my coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and then my husband will be like, hello, you gonna eat dinner, you gonna eat breakfast, and I'm like, no, I'm okay, I won't eat.
Right, okay, so, but if you're thinking about sort of the longer term consequences of that, even though you're not hungry, that may be where you might wanna kind of practically schedule other things. And coffee is an appetite suppressant, so that,
Yeah,
yeah,
I can deal with this all day,
right, which will
and I'm full.
help, okay. Others? Other example, yes?
Well, I had set a goal for myself that I wanted to start going to the gym,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to lose some weight, and I had a certain amount of pounds that I had in mind. And I said it wasn't a diet, but it was a diet. I said I wasn't going to label it as a diet because I wasn't going to stick to it. And so I set myself on a path. I was eating healthily, and I don't know what happened, but it was a bag of cookies.
I love it. I don't know what happened. That's my favorite ever.
And
There's a
walked
bag of
into the
cookies.
store, and it was like it was calling me. And I don't know what happened, and I bought it. And once I ate, like when I was debating about it, once I ate one, I was like, okay, I already started.
What the
I'm
hell?
gonna reset it tomorrow.
What the hell?
I haven't been back to the gym since May, so
Okay.
it's like prolonged.
Okay, so and that's, by the way, what you're describing is not uncommon. Okay, I hear so many people say, I don't know what happened. I just like woke up and there was like 2 pizza pies and this and that, and you bought it was cookies for you, but something triggered it. So if you could think back, do you have any idea what might have triggered it? Do you think your diet might have been too rigid? Do you think you were, I must not eat certain foods?
I think it was a little too strict.
Okay.
Because I was trying
Yep.
to stick to like a certain diet. I
Yep.
had like a certain one in mind. I bought a particular book that I was following.
Right.
I tried to stick to it.
Right.
And also I think it was like I was feeling discouraged from going to the gym because I was like, I'm seeing all of these people and they don't look like me.
Right.
And
right.
I feel like if I like I wasn't in like company.
And so what did you think when you were looking around the gym and seeing people that weren't like you?
I
What were
was
you?
like, I don't belong here.
Okay.
I don't belong here. And it was like, it was not, it was like, it was frustrating,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I was going a lot, but I was
Yeah.
like, I don't see the results that everybody else has.
And when you were looking around your, because that's also very common, right? Like I don't fit it. Were you thinking anything about you that you didn't look like them or they didn't look like you?
I was saying, like, how did I let it get so far that I'm not like in the
Okay.
same league anymore?
And does it say anything or did it say anything about you that you let it get so far?
Yeah, that I was kind of failing.
Okay. You were failing, or are you a failure?
You were failing. Like
You
I
were-
was
Okay.
at that task, I
Right.
was failing.
But you weren't giving yourself, I'm a failure.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that's good. Okay. But for you, maybe the trigger was this, this diet that I must not eat this, or I must eat it this, whatever the case may be. So there's your demandingness. Okay. Okay, yes.
I don't know if this is, well, I think what happens with me is I take time, like I don't have time for myself.
Mhm.
Everybody else is more important, has to get done because if it don't get done, I mean, I know they're not gonna do it, so I have to get it done.
Uh-huh.
So, and I try stopping them, I'm like, okay, I'm really stressed now, I'm tired, I don't,
Yep.
I need to have time for myself. But the demand I got them so used to
Yep.
presence that now it's like when I want to talk to myself, I can't because of,
They expect.
right, so
Okay, so would you say that you fall into a category of maybe like, needing other people's approval?
I don't even know, no, I don't think so, because I really don't care what they think.
So why are you putting them before you?
I don't know. I think it's because I know it's not gonna get done, so I just do it.
All right, and if it doesn't get done,
Yeah.
then what? Let's say you didn't do it and it didn't get done.
If it don't get done, it seems like it's gonna fall back on me, and that's the reason why I do it, because I don't have kids, so my family feel like I have the time.
Right. So let's say, okay, so just let's just play this out. So if you don't do it, it doesn't get done, then it's gonna fall back on you, and let's say it does. What do you think about that?
I don't like it, but.
Could you,
Yeah, I think that it can be really done, because it needs like, it's like, it's an essential thing. Sometimes it could be, to me, I think everything's important, like, okay, this gotta be done, that's gotta be done, am I gonna go to the doctor, those things are
Okay.
important to me.
Sure. Sure. So for you, maybe is it a matter of like you've got competing demands on your time? There are a lot of things that are important, and perhaps maybe for you it's not necessarily some sort of irrational thinking, but it may be more you're having trouble prioritizing. So that may be something to think about. That I don't try and create problems where there are none, like in terms of irrational thinking. Like it may be as a prioritizing thing, like, all right, I've got this much time, now what's the most important things of all these important things that I've got to get done, and can I tolerate not getting everything done right now? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody with catastrophizing? Awfulizing? Have an example? Okay, so let me ask you guys a question. How many, if anybody, how many of you have a bad food list?
The trigger food?
Yeah, like bad foods, like things I shouldn't eat, things I must not eat,
Oh,
things I.
Yeah, all right.
Everybody? Oh, not everybody. No. Okay. No. Yes. 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 Most. No. But most.
Does this count? Because I notice I do this too. Like say for instance, I'll go to a supermarket, right? And I'll see a cake, an Entenmann's cake I like, that I would eat in the past or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll buy it and I'll bring it home, but I won't eat it. And it'll sit there. But the point is that it's there.
You just have comfort that it's there. Okay.
It's
But it's
weird.
not. But
I
it's not.
won't
But it's not
eat
a
it.
problem. I mean, you're not. It's not creating a problem for you.
It's just there.
Just knowing that it's there, you're able to not. Okay.
And I'm good. I'll look at it and I'll say, okay, I'll have a piece tomorrow.
Okay.
And then the next
And
day
you
I'll
don't.
forget and then
So
I'll be like,
you're
oh,
sort of like the
okay.
polar opposite of a lot of people.
It's so weird.
Okay. All right. Well, savor it. But don't break yourself if you go back the other way.
Right.
Okay.
That's
So
true.
a lot of people in the room have bad foods, and I use bad. I mean, that could, foods. All right. So if you eat something on that bad food list, or things you're trying to avoid, or whatever, what do you think about that?
Awesome.
It tastes good.
It's
I
awesome.
want
It
more.
tastes good. I want more. Okay.
I deserve it.
That's a good one. I deserve it. Yes. Okay.
Second.
Good rationalization. Okay. I deserve it.
It's not that bad.
Okay, right, so this is in the moment, right? It's not that bad, it tastes good. And then how do you feel after you've done it? Okay,
So good, I'm kind of happy we did it.
okay, and then how do you feel after that?
I can't do it anymore now.
Okay, so there's this in the moment, and then there's after the moment. And that goes really back to frustration and tolerance. So, yes, it's in front of me, and it feels, it tastes really good, and it's so awesome, and I love it, and I deserve it, etc. But afterwards, you feel terrible, awful, guilty, angry, whatever the case case may be. So the question is going to become, for those that have a problem, and most people do, with frustration and tolerance, is it worth it in the moment to eat whatever it is? And how am I going to feel half hour after, an hour after, a day after, whatever the case may be? So really what you're looking at is the short term, in the moment, immediate gratification, versus the longer term goals and gratification. And people with frustration and tolerance tend to be what we call short-term hedonists. They give in to the moment of feeling comfortable, right? It feels good. Right? Think about it. But we're not thinking about how am I going to feel an hour after I do this, right? We're just thinking how it feels in the moment. And so what we need to start to train ourselves to do is just start, look, if you want to sit down and eat something that's not in your best interest, fine, it's your choice, take responsibility for it, but at least say to yourself, I'm choosing to do this because it is going to feel really good right now, but how am I going to feel after I do this? I'm going to feel terrible. I just want you guys to start to be thinking a little bit past the immediate time. And sometimes the short term is worth it. But I say, like, in general, more of like a longer term perspective, it tends to get in our way. Yes, in the back.
I was gonna kind of jump off that, maybe what the hell effect.
Yeah.
We can rationalize it, but
Yeah.
at the same time, we have a finite amount of time in this life,
Sure.
and maybe it's not so bad if we can learn to control it. And, obviously everything in moderation.
Right. No, the thing is, like, if you subscribe to that, and I agree, like, you're not here forever. If it's not a problem for you, then it's not a problem. But if it's the stories we tell ourselves, like the excuse, well, we're not going to live forever, or, I deserve it, or my boss is a jerk, so I need this martini, yeah, it's all great, but,
Painting a good picture of myself. What the hell effect, the YOLO effect?
what's,
You only live once.
oh, sorry, am I not out of touch with reality?
I wasn't sure what was
You only live once. Yes, okay. YOLO, sure, but do you YOLO want to live in a negative way, or YOLO want to live in a better way? And does YOLO want to be for like 5 years, or YOLO want to be for like 20 years? That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm sensing that the gentleman in the back is a really good person to come up with any kind of excuse. So you might want to huddle around him before we leave, and he will, I'm sure, dole out a good line for each one of you. But there's, you know what? YOLO, okay, sure, YOLO. Then what?
Then work hard to get to where you want to be.
Good comeback. Good save. Okay, so are we good with this? So really what you want to start to be thinking about is, what are you telling yourself in the face of whatever's in front of you, whether it be literally food or drinks, whether it be a problem at work, whether it be a feeling you're having. What are you thinking about that's creating your unhealthy behaviors? All right, now what are we going to do about this? Now we've talked a lot about this. Okay, so methods to break emotional eating, drinking, or any kind of behavior that you really is not in your best interest. A very helpful thing to do, especially at the beginning, is a real-time food log. So, in today's day and age, on your smartphone, there's apps for everything. You can do it on paper. But the idea is to literally write down everything you eat and drink as you're doing it. Don't wait till the end of the day, because we know that history is revisionist, right? Do it as in the moment, because you're much more likely to become aware of triggers, patterns, unhelpful thoughts or emotions. So as much as possible, do it as, as close to the episode of eating as possible.
Amounts.
What's that?
Amounts.
Amounts.
You'll be like, really? I had 4 of them?
Well, no, but it's true though. It's monitoring everything you're eating. Also putting down what was the context? So like, what were you thinking? How were you feeling? Was it a meal, or was it like a snack, or was it a binge? But really the idea behind that is to, number one, start to become aware of what you're eating throughout the day, and also what's going on in your thoughts and emotions, and starting to see the connection there. Now, I will say that I have to caution you that if you decide that you want to do this, keep a real-time we call it self-monitoring. I just want to give you a heads up that if you do it every day, in the first week that you do it, you're probably going to have an increase in thoughts about food or drinking, whatever the case may be, because you're paying so much attention to it. So for the first week, your thoughts about it will spike up. That's natural, but then if you keep doing it, the thoughts will go away. I don't want you to do this and be like, what the heck was she saying? Like, I'm thinking more about it now than I did before I came to this workshop. But that's a natural thing, so just be aware that that could happen. But it's very helpful. Now, people will say, I don't want to log my food. Why not? Because I'm embarrassed. I don't want to see it, or whatever the case may be. That's the reason to do it, right? To see what's going on behind it. And really, if people are going to do the logging, they tend to not overeat or overdrink or over whatever often, because they know that they have to be accountable for it. It's going to be on paper. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so I highly suggest that. So obviously challenging the irrational beliefs that we have. So I must not eat this whatever. Well, why must you not eat it? Does anyone have a belief that they must not blank? I must not eat or drink something? I must not go off my diet? Anyone have a demand? Yes.
Definitely, if you want to stay in good shape, you must not eat certain foods.
But that will be what we call a conditional shift. If I want to stay in shape, then I shouldn't eat certain foods. That's true. But I'm talking about more of like a hardcore, rigid demand. Did you have
No.
same kind of thing? Okay. So what we may hear is like, I must not eat just carbohydrates. Okay, whatever. So
Paint chips.
what's that?
Paint chips. That's what my mother said.
Paint chips?
Stop eating the paint chips.
Oh. You must not eat it. So the question is, well, why must you not eat carbohydrates? And the answers you'll hear, well, because, then I eat more, because it makes me bloated, whatever it is. But those aren't reasons why you absolutely must not eat them. Those are good reasons why it'd be better you don't. Here's another example of a challenge. If I eat blank, that would be horrible. That would be awful. Oh my God, I can't believe right? Okay? Is it really the end of the world if you ate something or overate something? Is it the end of the world? No, right? Because we're all here and I'm sure we've all done it. Is it bad? Maybe. Bad because of our goals. But is it the worst thing in the world? No. So that's the kind of, since there's a lot of frustration and intolerance in the room, I can't stand it. What do you mean by that? I can't stand, right? So there was a lot of people that had that frustration and intolerance. What can't you stand? Give me an example of a frustration and intolerance belief.
You can't control yourself when you go and eat.
Okay, so I can't stand being in front of too much food?
Right.
Okay, does that sound familiar to some people? I can't, okay. I can't stand it. If we look at those words, if you can't stand something, what would happen?
Dislike it.
Spontaneously combust.
You'd be dead.
Yeah.
Like, we can't tolerate to not have water. True? Right. We can't stand or tolerate to not have food. I mean, ironic that I'm using that with this workshop, but the equipment, right? So the idea that we have to be careful about the way we're talking to ourselves. If you tell yourself, I can't stand being in front of all this food, I have to eat some. I can't stand this feeling of boredom or stress, then you're going to start to believe that. And what we're going to do as human beings is get the hell out of that, right? So if I can't stand it, I'm going to do everything to get away from it, and we tend to engage in unhealthy behaviors. So that's really the piece. Like, there's no, if you couldn't stand whatever it is you're telling yourself you couldn't stand, you wouldn't be in this room today talking about what you couldn't stand. Does that make sense? Okay? So the idea behind that is, I don't like this feeling of stress or discomfort. I don't like that I'm in front of all of this food, but I can tolerate it. I can stand it, and it's in my best interest not to indulge in it, or whatever the case may be. Okay? So that's what I want you guys to start to think about, is not to sort of literally, quote, feed your irrational thinking. I want you to start to challenge it, because the irrational beliefs that we're telling ourselves, they're not consistent with reality. And even if you fail at a diet or an eating episode, as we call it, that doesn't make you a total failure as a person. How would you define failure as a person?
You
Give up, okay, and then what? So you give up, and so
then you stay down.
so you fail all the time after that.
Yeah.
Okay. Others?
You're not. You're not a failure.
You're not a failure.
It's a global rating.
It's a global rating, right? So if you think of failure as somebody who fails 100% of the time, past, present, and future, that's a failure, right? Because that would be a global rating, and it kind of consumes all of the person. Does anybody in the room meet that criteria? No. So there again is, there's your challenge to that global evaluation. Okay? You may have failed at this, but you are not a failure as a person. Okay, so the all or nothing thinking, that's what we're talking about, the bad foods. Like, so what working with people, that when they have these bad foods, and when I say bad foods, I mean, if you have like a health condition, and there are some bad foods. I just want to be clear about that. Like, I'm putting that aside. I'm like, that's obviously a different issue. But, foods that you are avoiding and you must not eat, those tend to be the foods that you end up binging on, going after, right? It's like, I must not eat McDonald's French fries, and I must not eat them, and all of a sudden, why do I have large French fries in my hand? Well, because that's what we tend to go after. So the idea, to kind of break that, is to incorporate them into your diet. Not every day, as you're saying in the back, moderation, but not give them so much power. Food is not good or bad. So if I say, you must not think of the color blue, you must not think of the color blue, you must not think of the color blue, what are you thinking of?
Pink.
Thank you. Blue, right? So it's the same thing here. If you must not, you tend to kind of go against it. So it's really becoming more flexible. Okay? Yes?
That's how I feel about Chipotle.
That's how you feel about Chipotle. You must what?
Not go to Chipotle.
You must not go. And when was the last time you went?
A while, actually. I don't think about it.
But now I'm going to guess that in the next week you're going to Chipotle. But so the idea is that the more rigid you are about things, the more likely you are to kind of break it. Okay, so thought stopping. This is a very practical solution. It's very helpful, but it's very much in the moment. So if you're having kind of like a thought that is looping, like, I really want that cake, or whatever the case may be, stop! Okay, so the idea is picture a big stop sign, stop the thought, and come up with an alternative thought, an alternative visual, something that's going to be more helpful, just to sort of break that in the moment that will hopefully get you out of that immediate situation. Okay, so again, it's a practical solution. It's not going to address your deeper, stemming, irrational thinking. Okay, forget that. Alter your language is an important one. Really watch the way you talk to yourself. Okay, so really start to become in tune with your internal dialogue, because that's what's going to drive how you feel and what you do, how you behave. So internal dialogues like, I'm such a failure, I'm so worthless, I'm not good enough, I'm incompetent, I can't stand it, I'm a loser. Thinking those things are probably not going to help you achieve your goals. So if you find yourself with the I'm a failure, you want to change that to, okay, I screwed up this time, or I failed at this. and you may always fail at this particular aspect, but I'm not a failure as a person. And I don't like this feeling, but I can stand it. I don't like what's in front of me, but I can tolerate it. That is going to be really, really important. If you kind of are out of touch with your thinking, it's going to be a lot harder to change how you're feeling and behaving. Okay? And if you're more in tune to how you're feeling, which a lot of people are, they say, I don't know what I'm thinking, I just know that I feel anxious, right? So that can be a clue for you. All right, I'm feeling anxious, so what am I thinking to make me feel anxious? I'm thinking like this would be horrible. If I went off my diet or whatever, if I ate this, it'd be hard. If if this person doesn't approve of me, that would be horrible. So there's other ways around it, but the key there really is to kind of get the thinking and the emotions and behaviors connection. Whichever one you identify with first, just go towards the other one, okay? Distraction, again, it could be very helpful in the moment, like if you're having an urge or whatever the case may be, do something in the moment that would sort of be opposite to what you would do, whether it be eating or drinking. Great for the moment, not great long term, because there are going to be situations where you can't always distract yourself. Okay, so that goes back to the unconditional self-acceptance piece and also the disputation of the thinking. Stimulus control. This is some people, they just can't have ice cream in their house. They just can't have alcohol in their house. They can't have potato chips. So they control what's around them to help them achieve their goals. And that's great as long as you can do that. But then there's, we're talking about eating and drinking, for tonight's topic. That's not really realistic, right? In the real world, we can't control if someone brings lunch in at work. We can't control walking down a bakery. So we can't always control our environment, but, external. But if, in your home, if there are things that are going to be triggers for you, stimulus control is a way of helping yourself with that. Referenting is really good. Referenting is making a list of, like, for example, all the reasons why it would be in your best interest, short-term and long-term, for engaging in a particular behavior or for not engaging in a particular behavior.
Cost benefit.
Yeah, it's part of a cost-benefit analysis, but it's really focusing on one piece of it. So to be very concrete, like let's say that, the behavior that I really want to work on is emotional eating. So I'm not saying I don't want to eat, but emotional eating. So making a list of all the reasons why it's in my best interest, short-term and long-term, to tolerate the discomfort of whatever's going on with me and not engage in emotional eating. And the reason why I say short-term and long-term is because, again, it's long-term you want to be thinking about. People focus on the short-term. Short-term it feels good, but long-term how's it going to feel? So, and then once you've done an exhaustive list, you want to read it multiple times a day. And the idea is to get it from back here to front here, okay? So that when you're in the midst of an event, whether it be a holiday party, a family event, whatever the case may be, you are more likely to recall or refer to the reasons why it's in your best interest to not engage, okay? Relaxation training for those that have like maybe anxiety or anger, like very aroused, physiologically aroused, and they don't like that feeling and then they end up drinking or eating or whatever the case may be. Relaxation training, progressive muscle relaxation, is a very good assistance in that. Assertiveness, and I think this goes back to what you were saying about how do you avoid being rude, right? So do we all know how to be assertive? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to be a pushy family member who wants to be the volunteer.
I will. Call them.
Who wants to volunteer? Okay. All right. Do you have a pushy food family member?
Yeah.
Okay. Your mom?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's your name?
Rob.
Rob. Okay. Rob, here, eat this. I made all this food. Come on, try this. This is amazing. Try it.
It's a lot of food, not in the mood.
I don't care if you're in the mood. This is amazing. I spent all day on this. How could you? What do you mean you're not in the mood? Just have a piece. Come on, have a piece. You're offending me. You're saying you're rejecting me.
I ate already. Have some Chipotle.
But you can have some Chipotle. But that workshop really worked for you. Okay, but you have to. But just have this. Have a bite. Come on, have a bite.
Okay.
Okay.
I can't give in.
No, but you could give in, and a lot of people do give in, and that's the
I
problem.
eventually give in.
Okay, so you, all right, so you try to be assertive, but you eventually give in. Okay, so being assertive is not blaming the other person. So not blaming your mother for being the food pusher, but it's expressing how you feel about what that other person is doing, and then making a request for a different, in next time, a different approach. So for example, Mom, I really appreciate that you spend all this time making this food, but when you keep asking me to eat it, I feel very uncomfortable, and it's frustrating for me because I'm trying to stay, healthy, and I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't keep asking me after I say no for the first time. So I'm not saying, Mom, you're annoying, Mom, you're this, Mom, you're that. I'm saying, when you do this, this is how I feel. And I would really appreciate it if maybe it could be done this way. Assertiveness does not guarantee that you get what you want, but it increases the likelihood. Okay, and that's a key point. Now, part of being assertive though is you're not angry, you're not resentful, you're not rageful, you're not. It's really coming from a place of a healthier emotion, frustration, annoyance, disappointment. Then you can be assertive. But if you're angry, you're more likely to be more aggressive in your communication, okay? And then finally, exercise, okay? Exercise is probably the fastest way to feel good in the moment and to help counter some of the reasons why people emotionally eat and drink, depression, anxiety, boredom, kind of releases endorphins. And so that's, what we obviously, especially when we're talking about eating and drinking, you want to do that anyway, but it also is it's a quick way to kind of to tackle those triggers. Okay, and this is an example of what I was talking about, the food journal, the food log. So the time of day, because you might find that you're emotionally eating, I tend to emotionally eat on the weekends. What's that about? Oh, I've got nothing going on. I tend to emotionally eat or drink at night. Why? Well, because I haven't eaten all day and then I engage in eating, or because it's my downtime and I deserve it with my reality TV. You start to see patterns. What you ate and drank, where you did it. Where you did it is very important because if you're emotionally eating or drinking in a particular place, you start to associate it with that. So then bed becomes where that's where you feel good and you eat. So that's also very important. And I put the star there that's helpful for those that tend to, either if they think it's a binge, they overate, or if they engage in sort of compensatory behaviors. And then the context and comments is what I was referring to about what were you thinking in that moment when you were eating, or how were you feeling? And that's going to be sort of the starting point for what you need to address. Okay. Any questions? Yep.
Real quick, the question was about scare tactics. How what they're doing with cigarettes today.
Yeah.
With just in terms of the scare tactics,
Right.
Seeing someone with diabetes who had to amputate,
Right.
or something from a food perspective.
Okay.
Is that do you find that to be effective?
Well, I think it's very interesting. So he's talking about scare tactics, that commercial with Terry and the smoker. I can't. I'm
Right.
not a
I'm
smoker,
saying
but I
that you
can't.
see someone with
Okay.
Crohn's disease.
Now, it's funny, I travel a lot to Turkey for work. And in Turkey and in Europe, I don't know if you guys have been, their cigarettes have, all of the different brands have pictures of, literally a person with a white sheet over them, like they're dead. Someone on a respirator, like a baby that's trying to reach them. I mean, they freak me out. I'm not a smoker, they freak me out. And I will be sitting at a table with 8 people, Turkish people, that have 3 packs each. And what they do is they just turn the picture around, or they have certain pictures that they don't want. So they'll ask for a better picture. You know what I'm saying? the one
Someone
that's
smoking with the picture.
like so there's one, it's kind of funny actually, there's one where there's a couple in bed, but they're like kind of each like that, like they're not facing each other, and it's I asked them because I can only Turkish, and it says like, you know, it reduces sperm count or something like that, and all the guys that I'm sitting having dinner with, they refuse, if they go buy cigarettes, they're like, not those, they don't want that particular, but they'll take the one with the you know,
Sheet over the head.
yeah, the sheet over their
That
head. Yeah, I mean, like, or the respirator. It's like, so, I mean, I can only go for my small sample of that. And I have a family member who's a strong smoker, and when she sees that commercial, changes the channel. So, as she's smoking. So,
I changed the channel when I'm not.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Some people it might work. I think everyone's, you know, highly variable.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? No? Okay, all right, well, thank you guys for coming.